We're alive now. We have a little bit of rain today, so we got a little bit of lower. Our signal's a little low today, so I apologize if there's going to be a little bit of dragging. Hopefully, you guys are having a wonderful day. If you don't know who I am, my name is John Johnson, and I am a firearms trainer in Cape Coral, Florida, who specializes in first time shooters. We specialize in you. We teach the first time shooter to become more proficient with a pistol and to just build confidence and get yourself down. We're a gun store, gun range, and training facility in Cape Coral, Florida. You don't know where Cape Coral is? We're on the southwest side of Florida, the good side, basically. And then we're between Tampa and Naples, if you kind of get an idea there. We're down here in the beautiful areas. We love it here, and we appreciate you guys. You know the drill. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and put your information and where you're from. Oh boy, one of your loyal. I'm getting a little buffering, guys. I apologize about that. If you're one of our loyal su- loyal people that come every week. We appreciate you as well. Give me a let me know how I'm coming across on the goodbye. Hello, Mike. How you doing, buddy? Good, good to see you. We are plugged direct. Jacob, you want to check it, bud? All right. Just not getting the signal. I don't know what the deal is. Hopefully, I'm coming across okay. So today we got a live that we're doing here. We've done it once before, but the questions keep coming up, so I thought I'd cover them again and again and again for you until you guys get them. These are the top questions that new students ask. They are pretty much common questions that are asked on a regular basis. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that, Mike. Thanks. But I will tell you this, there are no dumb questions when it comes to firearms or firearms training or just handling a firearm and anything else like that. Too many people are assuming uh, that the weapon is deadly. It's not. It's just a tool, and a tool needs to be operated by the craftsman, which is you. So if you need help understanding how to or have some questions, that's what we're here for. We're here for the Q&A. We're here for the questions. You know, as a firearms instructor, I'm always asking my students, one, are they receiving what I'm giving them? Number two, is it something do you have a question? Do you need me to explain it to you better? Or what's the stereo? Or whatever they need me to do. I would love to. I would love to help each and every one of you get to the better shooting. Now, the cool thing about most of this stuff we're going to cover this evening is it's all on my YouTube channel. We started this live to back up our YouTube channel to give us some regularity, give us the ability, you guys, to share this information with your friends and family. And I think this is going to help us tremendously throughout the evening. Don't forget to comment as much as you can. If you have a question of any kind, obviously we can cover it as well. So let's go ahead and start the PowerPoint presentation, and we will discuss each one of these as we go. All right, 10 questions asked by a new handgun shooters. Um, I just put these together for myself. I thought they were good. If you have questions that you think we should add it to this list, please do. Let me know. I can always I learn more from my students and my sometimes my students learn from me. So I want to get as much of this information to you where you can share it as well as maybe learn something from it. So let's go ahead for the very first one. There are 10 common questions asked by new shooters. Navigating the world of handguns can be daunting for new shooters, as many questions arise about safety, handling, and best practices. Here are 10 common questions new shooters ask, along with detailed answers to help you build a solid foundation for responsible and effective firearm use. All right. What do you think the first one is? The first is, what type of firearm should I start with? Now, a lot of people, and I put this in as a 22 to begin with, and and when I talk about what type of firearm should I start with, we don't do this. We don't start with a small caliber. 95% of the people asked or brought their wives in or anything else start with a 22 first. And it's not a bad idea, but technically, if I let you shoot a 22 first, every other weapon is going to have too high of a recoil for most new shooters. So, in my opinion, you should shoot the highest caliber you're comfortable with. Like for us here at the store, we commonly start everyone out with a 9 millimeter. And that 9 millimeter is not a real high recoil, but it's not a real low recoil. The challenge is starting someone out with a 22 is everything's going to be high recoil at the end. So when husbands and wives come in and say they want their children to start shooting, we don't want to overgun them. No way we want to do that. But in the real term of things, we want to make sure that they get the biggest recoil they can first, and then all the other ones will be lighter at that point. Because remember, that first shot is the most scary for most people. It really affects them. It really shocks them. But we give them all the proper grip and the proper stance and the proper trigger control, and we give them all that stuff to let them control the weapon. You can shoot anything, guys. It has nothing to do with it. So new shooters, if you're really not going to take a training class, let's go ahead and start with the smallest caliber you can. Now, if you're taking a training class or you have some ideas, go ahead and start with that 9 millimeter. The 9 millimeter is going to give you more punch if you need it for self defense. We always talk about the 22 is great for training purposes. It's great for low recoil, low cost of shooting. But if I take a milk jug and I put it out in front of you there and I shoot the milk jug with the 22, well, guess what? That 22 is just going to poke a hole in that milk jug and then it's going to start leaking, right? Well, if I shoot that milk jug full of water with a 9 millimeter, there is no milk jug left. It's the hydrostatic pressure of that bullet hitting the um, water inside the milk jug. It's going to explode that milk jug. So, this is sort of one of those double questions for me. Should I tell you 22 or should I tell you 9 millimeter? So here's what I did. I put the 22 up first because I want to make sure, and I know everyone doesn't have an opportunity to shoot with an instructor. So if you were trying to learn to shoot by yourself, then I'd recommend a 22 caliber to begin with. The challenge with 22, and this is a big deal, is that no matter which manufacturer of ammo we use, sooner or later you're going to pull the trigger on a 22 and it's not going to go bang. Hardly ever happens with a revolver, but with a semi-automatic pistol, sometimes the stuff that makes it go bang is in the rim. It's called a rim cartridge for a reason. It's in the fold of the rim, and when that gets hit by the striker or the actual firing pin, then it's going to make it go off. But sometimes, no matter who, CCIs, AM score, it doesn't matter who you are, sooner or later you're going to pull the trigger and that bullet ain't going to go bang. Now, At the range, doesn't matter if you have a misfire. Uh, in a defensive situation, it surely does because if you have a semi-automatic and it didn't go bang, you got to rack that out of there and get another one in there in a very quick motion. It becomes a little bit daunting for you, especially in high stress. The noise, the kick of it's not going to kick very much. Actually, 22 is 3 cents a round, so it's kind of economical budget thing. But 9 millimeter really nowadays, guys, is somewhere between 25 and 28 cents a round, so it's pretty economical as well. Do I recommend a 22 for defensive purposes? Absolutely not. I'm not going to say it won't work. I'm not going to say the United States military doesn't use a 5.56 all over the world, and then 5.56 or 2.23 is a 22. It's just on more rocket, it's on more fuel, but in the long run, it's probably not the best thing to start out with. But remember, the one the United States military uses is a is not a rim fire; it's a center fire. It is a hotter, and it's going to fire every time. So number one, what type of handgun should I use? Should I start with? Probably a 22 or 9 millimeter. Those are the two I'd recommend. If you agree or disagree, go ahead and comment below. I don't mind you disagreeing. I don't mind you agreeing. All right, so the next question most people run to is how do I hold a firearm? There's plenty of stuff on our YouTube channel about how to hold it from, but the proper grip is essential for controlling and accuracy. Placing your dominant hand high on the grip to ensure the web of your hand is pressed against the backstrap. Wrap your fingers around the grip, keeping your fingers straight along the side of the frame until you're ready to shoot. And place your support hand on the grip with your finger wrapping around the other fingers and your dominant hands and thumbs pointing forward. This is a two two thumbs forward grip. Very common through all the people. You don't know how many bullshit things I get from people on the internet telling me that your thumbs are going to get bit if you put your thumbs forward. And listen, I've shot thousands and thousands and thousands around. The only way you get bit by a semi-automatic is when you just put your thumb back behind it. Matter of fact, a right-handed student with your thumbs going on the left side of the gun, there's nothing on that side of the weapon that can get you. Now, if you're a left-handed student and you have the ejection port on the right side of the gun, you can get your thumbs too high at the ejection port and get popped there, but unlikely if you were to keep your thumbs below that ejection port that's on the firearm. Proper grip all starts with your dominant hand and then it leads into your non-dominant hand. But one of the tricks I'll give you, the one of the most important things to tell you, is your non-dominant hand controls the weapon, and your dominant hand holds the weapon. Over torquing with your dominant hand, which is very common for people who are right-handed, causes you to shoot to the right. Next time you're at the range, just grab your pistol with your right hand and squeeze very hard. You'll see that pistol roll to the right. And then when you do that with your left hand and you squeeze really hard with your left hand, it's going to roll to the left. When you work that grip in a 40-60 motion, where you've got less grip on your dominant hand and more grip on your non-dominant hand, you're going to level out that pistol. It's going to fit a lot nicer in your hand. And this is one of those questions that people always ask when I'm here at the range on open range time, and I look back there and if you're not holding the weapon properly, you're going to get a lot of muzzle flip. You're not going to have the control. I believe a couple weeks ago we talked about foundation. Your foundation starts at your feet and goes to the gun, and from the gun goes back to your feet. Grip is every bit important of foundation than your feet are, or your chest if you're a man driving with your chest muscles. If you're a woman, driving with your back muscles. But you got to get that good grip on the weapon to control it. If you're not high on the tang, for instance, you got a little bit of gappiness there, or you're tucking that right thumb and then pulling your other thumb up and wrapping around the other thumb. This gives you that non control. And if you do that, you're not going to be putting the whole fat around the pistol. When you put the two thumbs forward, you're touching skin to grip all the way around it. If you tuck a thumb and then put your hands on it, your thumb is blocking your dominant hand or your non-dominant hand from controlling the weapon. So pay attention to the two thumbs grip. Visit one of our YouTube videos. There's plenty of them on there showing you proper grip. All right. What are the basic safety rules I should follow? Well, we talk about that a lot in class. I'm going to give you a couple of them today that you can kind of get your head around real quick. We always want to make a pistol to pick up a pistol. That's the key thing, really, guys. If you can concentrate on keeping your finger off the trigger till you're ready to fire, and then when you're done shooting your 5 rounds, take your finger off the trigger. And then when you set the gun down, you're still making the pistol. I catch a lot of people putting the gun down, a gun at slide lock, where you know it's open and you know it's empty, but you kept your finger on the trigger, or you covered or hovered over that trigger guard. Those are not acceptable at all. So here's the number one handgun rule of all handgun rules. Do you know it? You should treat the weapon if it's loaded all the time. That's number one. If that's number one, if you treat the weapon if it's always loaded, where's your finger not supposed to be on the trigger? Keep the keep your finger off the trigger till you're ready to fire. Never point the weapon at anything you love and don't want to destroy. And then be sure of your target and what's beyond, right? And never point the weapon at anything you love and don't want to destroy. Do not check to see if the gun's unloaded by pulling the trigger. This happens, guys. This happens all the time. We always assume the weapon is loaded until we prove otherwise. That weapon is loaded. 95% of all firearms, semi-automatics, will fire with the magazine in or the magazine out. So if you look at a firearm and it has a magazine out of it and it's in a closed position, not at slide lock, you just assume that weapon is loaded. And any weapon you see with the magazine in, you just assume it's loaded. So, we talk this all the time. We go through this, all of our meetings, all of our classes. First thing we talk about, last thing we talk about it. One of the things I can give you, as much as you know how to load a pistol, you must know how to unload a pistol. And we give you an acronym for that as well. If you kind of think about a firearm, what's the life of it? Where's the life of that firearm? The life of the firearm is physically the magazine, because the magazine feeds the weapon. So if you're assuming the weapon is loaded and you drop that magazine, then we need to make sure that chamber doesn't have a round in it. And we need to rack it back. So to properly unload a semi-automatic pistol, I want you to remember the acronym DROP, DROP. Drop the magazine, rack the slide, open the slide, physically check the weapon. This is the only way to unload a semi-automatic pistol. Any other way than that, you have a loaded gun in your hand and you need to be very careful with it. D, drop. R, rack. O, open. P, physically check. That DROP could save your life or someone you know. All right, let's go to the next one. Next question they normally ask is, how do I aim a gun properly? Well, a lot of people get caught up on front posts versus back posts versus, Glock's trigger is a box and dot, where red dots and, you know, you have to have the sights lined and they have to have equal amount of space, and you can't have your front post higher than your back post. So you pay attention to the V on the back and the front post up here, and they got to be level. And this is the challenge. And most of the time, people are dunking their heads to shoot a pistol. They're doing all this head dumping, where you need to keep the gun in your line of sight as much as possible. So how do you aim a prop? How do you aim the pistol properly? Well, you get a good proper grip first, and then you get a decent stance, and you bring the weapon up into your line of sight. And then when you're slowly lining up your sights, let's say you have a Smith& and Wesson that has a 3-dot system. That 3-dot system, all 3 dots need to be lined up horizontally. You can't have your one in the front higher than 2 in the back or vice versa. See, that pistol is lined up and down by the sights and right and left by the sights because of the negative space. So we have to align the front sight with the rear sight, making sure the top of the front sight is level with the top of the rear sights. That's really the secret. If you have the front post level with the rear post in the center and the rear notched together, right? And focus directly through the weapon while looking at your front post, you will slowly begin to engage the trigger. And then from there, if you press the trigger and don't get super excited and pull the trigger, then you will impact where you need to be. Now, we've talked many, many times. There's plenty of videos on our YouTube channel, which I highly recommend you look at. One of our biggest videos is how to aim a pistol, because people get kind of they don't know where to put the post. They don't know where. So I would recommend you look at 6 o'clock hold is a good one. One thing people tend to think is that bullet flies in a straight line. It doesn't fly in a straight line. It flies at an angle. It flies at above the line. Because remember, your barrel is below your line of sight. And you have your barrel, your bore sight area, right? And you have your vision up here. And those two will not cross each other. But the manufacturers knew that. So what they ended up doing is, if you got the bore here and your sights are here, this bullet actually rises up into the sight here. So physically, they knew they had to adjust the sights to fix the sights. So if we aim below what we're supposed to be aiming, so if I take that barrel and I stick it directly in the center of the bullseye, my sights are already shooting high because I'm covering the bullseye. So it's more of a uh, you want to make sure that you visually see what you're aiming at. So we always talk about this 6 o'clock hold thing, where you actually take your circle and then you hold your weapon just below it so you can see your impact. Trust me, a lot of people try to cover the circle, and the covering the circle will work to a certain point. But the problem with that, you're not going to get a consistent point of aim. We all been to the range where we shoot one high, one low, one perfect, one to the right, one to the left, because you're not having a consistent point of aim. If you lollipop or golf tee your sights, in other words, your front post is the stick and your circle or whatever your number on the target is your lollipop. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that circle and post like this, compared to us trying to cover the circle. One of they give you two guys. It's about pressing the trigger, not pulling the trigger, and this becomes one of those things that people just can't get the concept with until they just do a little bit. Unfortunately, we all have these monsters that are inside of us, and someone who hasn't shot before and the monster inside of us doesn't like the noise, the recoil, and he just has no it's not your wheelhouse on a regular basis. It's freaking out. The guy is freaking out. And he when you put the gun in his hand, he's telling you, pull the trigger, pull the trigger, pull the trigger. Get out of here. Let's get out. Let's go, go. And that's where people get in trouble. Is they start pulling the trigger, which in turn, what's it do with the bullet? It impacts it low. It impacts it right. You're not hitting where you're aiming because you're pulling the gun as well as manipulating the pistol. All right. Number 5, the correct way to press the trigger. I can give you this in pretty simple. A press of a trigger is a slow, slow trigger engagement. Now, obviously, in the defensive situation, you're never going to be that slow. But what we're trying to do is figure out how much pressure I could put on this trigger until the weapon cuts. So one of the important things to get your head into is you cannot use the crease of your finger to engage a trigger. Using the pad of your index to press the trigger straight back in a smooth, controlled motion. Avoid jerking, slapping of the trigger, as this causes the gun to move and result in a missed shot. Consistent trigger control is a crucial for accuracy. Now, once you've put your sights together, we've worked our sights, we're comfortable, and we kind of see the sights each time. We need to keep that gun level and in control while we are engaging the trigger. 78 to 90% of people come here and are shooting below what they're aiming at because they don't have that consistent trigger engagement. So let's think about a scale. Let's think about having a scale in front of you right now, and you got 5 pounds on the one side of the scale. What the other side going to be? It's going to be up high in the air, right? So if I drop 5 pounds on top of that scale, right, in any kind of distance, let's say I drop 5 pounds at 6 feet on a 5 pound, the other 5 pounds, what's going to happen? The inertia of that 6 pounds, I mean, at 5 pounds falling 6 feet is going to make this other side of the scale do some crazy shit. It may even take that 5 pounds and dislodge it off the scale because the weight of that 5 pounds dropping it's going to cause a lot of problems for us. But imagine if I were to do that same scale, but instead of dropping the 5 pounds, how about cutting the bag open and pouring the 5 pounds? That's slow, slow, slow as you go. Imagine that, right? What would happen? That scale would just level out and be perfect for us, right? It wouldn't be too heavy, it wouldn't be too light. Obviously, if you kept all the sand on there. That's a press. That's what we're looking for. It's a slow cadence of the trigger as it comes back slower and slower and slower. If you know, this is one of my biggest things I tell people all the time, and I trick them a little bit. And I said, "Wow, that's great. How many shots have you shot already?" And they could tell me, "Well, I've shot 40 shots." Well, if you're pressing the trigger versus pulling the trigger, how would you know? How would you know if you know every time that weapon's gonna fire? That's gonna cause a lot of anticipation for you. That's gonna cause a little jerking of the trigger. You should just be pressing the trigger and tell you the truth, guys. The shot should surprise you. Now I know as you're a shooter a long time and everything else like that, you kind of get used to it. What we need to work on is that trigger travel. That trigger travel is different in every pistol. Some pistols, like the Taurus G2 or the G3, has a very soft but long trigger. It goes all the way back before it fires. The Shield Plus from Smith& and Wesson, that comes back to a hard wall. Anything past that wall, that weapon's going to cut. If you put a Glock 19 in your hand, that is one of the safeties on a Glock 19 is that front trigger guard, right? The trigger, it's a trigger, it's a trigger. It has a trigger before the trigger. That's the safety trigger. But when you begin to engage a Glock's trigger, there is no hard wall on it. It just loads and it loads and it loads and it loads. And the more it loads, the harder the trigger becomes. And the harder the trigger becomes, this is where you run into a problem where manipulation happens. You may pull the trigger, you may snap the trigger, because a lot of people get it back to a certain point and then they get excited and they finish it up. But if you don't have a level pistol when you get done with that shot, if you're in the range and you're engaging the trigger, and every time you engage a trigger, you can see the front post or the front of the pistol drop, that's where the bullets are going. They're dropping. For a woman, it'd be more driving with your back muscles, driving with your back muscles, pulling back with your not pushing out with your dominant hand, and pulling back with your non-dominant hand will keep that pistol level. For men, it's about driving the weapon with your pecs, your upper pecs. Because you take the weapon and push it out in front of you, you're going to work your whole muscle strap in there. Unfortunately for women, their pec is underneath their boob, where our pec is on top of our boob. So we can shittily hold the gun and shoot it okay. Women have to control it by just driving with their back muscles as much as possible and getting the proper stance. Trigger press versus trigger pull, it totally changes your when you start pressing a trigger, your accuracy will change immediately. When you understand the concept of a press versus a pull, things change in your whole accuracy and everything else, because at that point in time, you're able to consistently put these rounds together. That's why when you start seeing people talk about the equalizer, which is one of our best pistols, or the EZ, which is another best pistol, these have a lot of unique features: easy racking, easy loading, uh, nice white three dot system that puts people at ease. And when you shoot these pistols, the trigger on them are very, I'm not gonna say they're light triggers, but they are very gradual press back triggers, and that's why most people are able to, cover quarters with the equalizer versus any other pistol. You're not doing that with a Glock on your first couple times shooting him, because that Glock trigger gets a little stiff on there. But I've taken many, many, many students. Did one today. Lady went back there within a very short time. She put, a little bit bigger than a quarter today, but it was about half dollar. But she was shooting a revolver and they were all over the place. And I just showed her what a semi-automatic would do, because somebody told her, well, the only weapon a woman can shoot is a revolver, which is bullshit. Women can do anything a man can do. But revolvers are part of your arsenal, but they're not your best choice. Those revolvers have twice the recoil of a 9 millimeter, especially a 38 or a 357, for instance. And then with the little 380s, the small pieces, they have big recoil because less real estate. But they all have different triggers, and that's the thing we got to get our head around. So trigger engagement is very simple. That's the common dominator, nominator of this thing is the trigger press. Not a trigger pull, it's a trigger press. And it's just applying pressure with the trigger very slowly until it engages. The shot should surprise you. How do I handle recoil? Well, I've already told you this before, but you're going to be controlling it with your hands. You're going to lean forward. One of the things I see most people do is they have the stagger step. Stagger step is an old way of holding a pistol. One one foot forward, 1 foot back. If you kind of think about that, if I asked you, besides fencing, what athlete stands a 1 foot forward and 1 foot back and do any kind of sport? Karate, I guess you could too, but and fencing, right? Beyond that, most people are standing with 2 feet apart from each other. Feet shoulder width apart, bouncing on your knees, and moving your weight to the front of your toes. The more you're on your toes, the more mobile you'll be. The more mobile you'll be able to move right, left, forward, or back. If you stand 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, your mobility is only available in that position towards the customer, towards the bad guy. You don't want to go towards the bad guy. If you have to move backwards or to the opposite side, it's going to be very hard for you to do that by sliding your feet. You're going to cross your legs, which could cause a lot of problems. So, the very first thing we need to think about, let's get a proper stance. Let's get that firm grip with both hands. Lean slightly forward. If you just think about it, what we're trying to do is change the weight from our heels to our toes, and then that's going to help tremendously. Your stance absorbs a lot of the recoil. Now, for men, we talked about your chest muscles driving that gun towards the target, and for women, it's your back muscles. And then from there, there will be no recoil management because you know how to control it. And this is a lot of times women come in here and they go, "Oh, I shot a 9 millimeter before. It's just too much recoil." And I go, "Really?" And I said, "Who taught you to shoot?" "Well, no one taught me to shoot." Well, then there goes the problem. Let's go back there. Let's run a 9 millimeter. In their mind, they think it's the gun doing that. But technically, think about this. What's the gun do without you? And it only will let you control it. It doesn't control you. Well, and sometimes in the first couple magazines, people are a little nervous and they let the gun control them. But realistically, you control the weapons. You handle the recoil by driving with your chest muscles if you're a man, or your back muscles if you're a woman, and make sure you got a good grip. You know, I tell people all the time, and this is one of those deals, a firearm is a bully. And anything you give it, it's gonna take. And it's gonna take it wherever it may be in accuracy, it may be in recoil management, it may be just the overall uncomfortability of you, right? And you gotta make sure you get the good grip where your dominant hand is it's math, guys. Think about it. If we got our fingers right, and I'm right-handed, well, right off the bat, we gotta discount something right now. These thumbs do nothing on the firearm. We should not apply pressure with these thumbs. These thumbs, like in golfing, are along for the ride. Now, let's pull this back up. I'm right-handed and I'm right-eye dominant. So now we have these two fingers, right? The thumb and my trigger finger are now obsolete. Because what's the trigger finger do? Does that hold the gun? Nope. You can't put torquiness on this. The only thing this does is press the trigger, right? So we have our three fingers only holding on this pistol. Now, can I shoot the pistol with three fingers and be accurate? Yeah, sure. Sometimes that happens. But what's going to give us more power when we take our other hand and we wrap it in? And now we got our thumbs laying down the side of the gun. We're going to control a lot better. So, four fingers are always more than three fingers, and four fingers are going to give us more grip. Three fingers will allow us to hold it, four fingers will allow us to grip it. And this is going to help us control that recoil more than anything else. All right. Oh, is that the way we went? Did I miss one? Yeah, there we go. And a recoil. So the next one is, how do I load and unload a handgun safely? Well, very first thing you got to realize is the loading a magazine, and probably the hardest thing to teach a student is loading a magazine. We've done a couple of videos on there, but if you kind of think about the physical magazine itself, there are three parts to a magazine. There is the before actually, it's the casing of the magazine. Then you have a base plate. The very top thing is called the follower, and in between there is a spring. And every time you put a round in, guess what happens to that spring? It gets tighter and tighter and tighter to a point where you almost can't load the rounds in the gun. Now, there are certain pistols on the market that are very easy to load and easy to rack, like the Smith and Wesson Easy or the Equalizer. Taurus doesn't have a hard magazine. There's a trick to everything. A lot of people try to use their finger to push down on the other bullet and push it in, but you're not getting enough movement there. But if you use the bullet, and if you check out one of our videos called the cross method, where we take the bullet, hold it sideways, press down with my thumb, and roll it in, you're going to have a lot better success with that than trying to fight them in. Keep in mind, a lot of people hold a magazine on their belly and try to do loading of the magazine to get some more leverage. Your belly, well, you might have a six pack, but I don't. And a lot of people don't. You're better off putting it on the range table and push against something hard than there is trying to do it on your chest like that or on your belly like that. Um, to load a magazine, you want to insert the magazine into the magazine well until it clicks. Now, this click that we're talking about, when you load the magazine, let's say you successfully put 5 rounds in, and that's something we need to talk about. Last time you're at the range, you can comment below. What do you put in the magazine? Are you putting in 15 rounds of the 15-round magazine? You know what the challenge of that is? We Every time we touch this pistol, we're learning something, correct? We're either learning a good habit or a bad habit. And when you're putting in 15 rounds at the range, there's no way for anybody to control accurate shots for 15 shots. We just can't do it. We can't consistently do it on a regular basis. You're better off taking that weapon. Listen, range time is for what? Range time is for working on your fundamentals, working on your accuracy, working on your trigger engagement, your stance, and all that stuff. When you get into shooting high rounds, let's say you Glock 19, 15 rounds, how accurate, and you be honest with me, you might be, but most people aren't, large percentage aren't. How accurate are you with every bullet? What would you give yourself? Now, let's do 20 magazines at 15 rounds apiece. What do you think the first magazine is going to be like versus the 15th magazine? You get fatigued like everything else. Your hands get tough. That's all the stuff. So we always train here with 5 rounds. 5 rounds gives us 5 loads, 5 racks, five unloading. It gives us sight alignment, gives you a sight picture. It gives you time to think about it. Think about this: a 50-round magazine. If you have a 50-round box of ammo, if you put 15 rounds at a time in, 2 magazines is 30, and then you have 20 left. So you get 3 magazines done with that, with a little extra left over. What's that do for us? Versus if I did 5 rounds at a time. 5, check your sights, see how they are. Was that a good grip? Was my grip crappy? Was I not looking at my sight system? And figure out your whole deal and get yourself in a position where the first 5 are the most important in any magazine. 6 through 17 means absolutely nothing if the first 5 can't do what they need to do. So, pretty simple and easy. We talked about how to unload. I've already talked to you that the scenario with the drop. That's how you unload a semi-automatic pistol. You've got the gun in front of you. It's loaded. One of the questions that a lot of people ask, and this is a newbie question, that happens a lot of times. When should I load the pistol? Should I have the weapon loaded in my home? Should I keep one in the chamber? Now, obviously, if you've been doing this for an awful long time, those seem like silly questions. But But in the realm of things, when a new student is starting out, they have no concept of having a loaded gun in their home. And these are great questions that people are asking. We joke and kid with them about what time of this morning did you get up to put tires on the car to come to town? And they giggle and laugh, right? But in the realm of things, these weapons have to be loaded to save your life. You can't wait to load them until you need them. But you got to be comfortable enough to load them to need them, if that makes sense. Because the moment you aren't comfortable, those weapons should not be loaded until you understand the basics. And then from there, we always say to students, the weapon should be loaded in your home as long as you're comfortable with it. Racking it when you need it is something that's a little, you're not going to know when you're going to need it, if that makes sense. And the moment you get into a high stress situation, unfortunately, like a big adrenaline dump, your body does something wonderful. It drops off every inoptimal thing it needs. If it doesn't need it, it ain't going to use it. It's going to put all of its power into the things it needs. In a high stress situation, what happens? You get the tunnel vision, right? So your sights are going to be kind of whacked. What if your heart beats running really hard? What happened if you rack the slide, but don't rack it hard enough? And now you got yourself, you're not ready for it. You haven't been in that stressful situation. And this is stuff that we need to think about. Nobody needs a hurdle, but when you have things that are hurdles, you need to work through them. And this is what all that training does for us: the racking of the slide, the loading of the magazine, the pointing of the weapon, the drawing from the holster, getting yourself ready. All that stuff, it takes time to do, but in the long run, we can't wait to load our weapon, especially in a high stress situation. Because at that point, less guys walking around town today. There's guys walking with concealed carry weapons in their pocket with not one in the chamber. How many cops you think? How many sheriff's department? How many deputies? How many in throughout the United States are running around Barney Fife, not putting one in the chamber? Not a one of them. Matter of fact, they get caught with that, they're going to get in trouble because that's not safe either. You got to get yourself to understand what's the weapon? Just a tool. Who operates it? You do. All right. If you need more about loading a magazine or unloading a magazine, obviously go YouTube. There's plenty of them on there, but I have a full line of these things on our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you guys check it out and see it. What kind of ammo should I use? I'll be honest with you. We here at the range, we do a lot of trading and we use 124s. We use 9mm 124s. They are a little heavier bullet, but they get less muzzle flip and less muzzle flash. And that flash can freak some people out because they understand there's power there. But there's a big difference when you're shooting a 124 versus a 115 in 9mm. You get a little bit more muzzle kick with the 115 versus the 124. I will tell you there are three 9mm rounds that most people will find. 147s, which is subsonic, that's for suppressors and things like that. There's the 124s, and then there is the 115s. Those are average. Most gun stores, most big box stores, most order stores or online or anything else, it's either 115 or 124. Could you absolutely tell the difference uh, between the two? Most people can see the flash difference in the two, but either one will work. That's fine. No issue there. As it comes to brass, brass, brass. Don't use aluminum. Don't use steel in a semi-automatic pistol. Aluminum, not a problem with it, but it's a problem at the stores because the guys at the store, we don't allow it because our brass guy who buys all of our buckets doesn't like it. He wants us to pick it all out. We're not doing that. Secondary thing is steel heats up really fast, it contracts really slow, and it can mess an extractor up. Now remember, these are tools. If you oil them properly and run them, they're going to work fine. The problem is when you start dry shooting them with steel or aluminum, it's just not good for the gun. Brass expands and contracts very quickly and it makes it easy. So always, always try to use brass rounds if you can. Excuse me. And then the only other thing I could give you is for home defense, you wanted to use some kind of hollow points, and hollow points are all over the board. There's different manufacturers. Basically, what a hollow point does is it dumps all of its energy in the first 5.5 inches of the body. It's designed for non-collateral damage. If I take a ball ammo round and I shoot you with it, uh, or shoot somebody with it, it's going to go in and go out. There's no expansion. And this is probably the biggest problem most people have in a defensive situation is collateral damage. You're in the Walmart parking lot and all of a sudden, bang, you had to get in a critical defense situation. You were responsible for your bullet till it hits the ground. What it passes through, who else it hurts, everything else like that, you'd be responsible for it. So defensively, you want to use hollow points as much as possible. They will dump the energy in the first 5.5 inches of the body. Imagine a bullet traveling 1,400 feet per second, stopping in 5 inches. It's going to do a lot of damage, less than a ball ammo. Ball ammo, I can stack three people up behind that and bang, 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 bang all the way through that. That's why they talk about we do not want that collateral damage. As a concealed carry holder, as a firearm owner, as a responsible gun owner, you need to make sure you're using the proper weapons for defensive purposes versus range time. You know, the big difference is wallet wise, right? Hollow points can be anywhere from 75 to 100 dollar five a round. You don't want to use those in the range. Where 9 millimeter 124 brass like we sell in the store. We're anywhere according to what volume you buy from 25 to 28. Aluminum can be a little cheaper, but you know you're shooting outside, no big deal. Use aluminum. Steel can be even cheaper than that, but you can run the wear of how the weapon's going to work. If you have to use steel, that's all you have, that's all you found, and you got to use it. Make sure you use a wet gun. Make sure you oil it well, so you would not have any extractor problems. And you're not going to have extractor problems right off the bat, but you're putting un pressure and stress on a weapon that's really not designed for it. Read the manufacturers. They recommend use brass in most firearms, except if you go, you know, AKs and things like that are designed for steel rounds. That's just what they are. They're just designed for it. All right, number 9. Oh, did I do duplicate? Ah, I must have duplicated. I'm sorry about that. Not going to tell you that again. Uh, this is one of those things that people get freaked out about. Is what should I do if my handgun malfunctions? Well, I mean, technically, what malfunction normally happens with a firearm is somebody loading the magazine and not making sure the magazine is complete. The bullets are completely seated in the magazine, and you may get a double feed there. Um, I try to think about back, you know, engaging a bullet and the weapon just goes click. In other words, the bullets are in there, but you got a bad round. This is happening a lot nowadays because these manufacturers are making these bullets so fast that you can get it. Um, I hate to say they don't jam, but majority of the time a malfunction happens not by the gun itself, but by the student. And we talk about a lot of times we talk about limp wristing, not controlling or not driving the weapon. If you're getting a lot of muzzle flip on that gun and you're getting it to uh that front post is like say it's in a 40-degree angle. Well, that slide is meant to go up and down, not number right up forward and backwards. It's really not designed to be going up and down, and that up and down causes a lot of gravity problems. So, what's the misfire that commonly happens? Is a misfeed or a double feed, and it all starts with two things. You have to make sure in a situation like that that you're safe. So, finger off the trigger, get the magazine out the best way you can. Now, if you have a double feed, where you have one in the barrel and one in the magazine. The magazine itself has spring loaded. It's pressing on this top bullet. So what you need to do is take the pressure off of the slide. And the easiest way to do that is just pull the slide back and pull that and press the magazine button. That mag should fall directly out of it at that point in time. But if you don't have that pressure off it, that mag will be stuck with there. Um, you know, keeping a gun pointed in the safe direction. Common issues of failure to fire. And this is just easy, just racking the gun. It goes click. It didn't fire. It did go click. And you're not using reloads that you've made, okay? Because there are a couple different things that could cause that. One is that you soft racked it and it just didn't put around in the chamber. And that causes the click, right? Or you've racked it, you know there's one in the chamber, and you just hit click, and the bullet just doesn't fire. It happens. That's just part of the deal. Now, if that happens, what's the first thing you want to do is pull it back, rack, and get it out of there. And once you've got it out of there, you should be able to shoot the next round, no problems. But if you pull that back and it gets stuck back, like it's a weird scenario. Now you have to get that magazine out, and that magazine now is under pressure, so you have to get the slide off there and press the button. You know, you want what I tell most people is look at the magazine, make sure they're seated all to the back, the bullets, right? And then when you stick the bullet in, don't stick it in like it's it's a piece of crystal you're worried about breaking it. You could slam that magazine in it. As a matter of fact, if you slam the magazine and the gun's been shot enough, it'll close automatically. Like the Glocks do that a lot. You know, they once you've got it in, boom, it closes. But you want to verify that magazine because that's one of the things that happens sometimes. Some of these guns nowadays, the way people are holding them, uh, the mechanics are like that. You can actually drop your magazine because you're not holding on to the gun properly. It's happened multiple times for people because your hand is pushed against that magazine drop, especially right-handed student where their left hand is pushing the magazine drop, and that causes the mag to not end because you're holding it. Most likely, the mag would not fall out, but it not would not be seated. And if it's not seated, then you go to shoot the next round, and then it doesn't grab that bullet off the top of the magazine because it's lower than it should be. So there's a lot of different stuff, but most of the time, if you're having magazine malfunctions or gun malfunctions, it's normally something that the student's doing, but there could be opportunities for there be something wrong with the pistol as well. So you want to make sure that if you're having some hold back on the last round or your one magazine is always screwing up. We have that here once in a while with students, and all I tell you to do is what you should do all the time is mark your magazines. So let's say, for instance, you got this magazine. Number one, it shoots 5 rounds and locks back all the time. And then the next magazine, it'll shoot 5 rounds but won't lock back. And the third one will lock back. And the fourth one is doing some weird stuff. And then you can start kind of weed the magazines out that aren't the problem and the ones that are the problem. Magazines, like anything else, they can go bad after a while. They can get dirty, they can have stuff in them. You shoot outside, you could get dirt and debris in them. They need to be taken apart just like a firearm does. Nowadays, as cheap as Glock magazines and some of the magazines are, it's just best off to buy multiples. But even when you buy a multiple magazine, if you're not buying the manufacturer's magazine, and that happens sometime with SIG and all these other manufacturers because these magazines can be 50 and $60. And they have aftermarket magazines that are cheaper, but you know, make sure you do your homework on those. Make sure you shoot them an awful lot. You don't want to have aftermarket magazine in your gun, and the first time you go to use it, you've got some kind of misfeed or problematic thing for it. That'd be a challenge for you. All right. Conclusion. Understanding and addressing the common questions a new handgun shooter has is a cru- crucial by fostering confidence and safety in firearm handling. By mastering these fundamentals and aspects, a new shooter can develop skills and knowledge necessary to become responsible and proficient handgun user, paving the way for rewarding and secure shooting experience. All right, very, very cool. Let me get out of this full screen. Let's get me back on the camera. And there we go. All right. There we go. There we go. So that being said, we'll go hit some of these. Uh, let's see who's here tonight. We appreciate everybody who's come on this evening. Michael, we appreciate you, buddy. Michael Blanco. Chris Hawes, thank you very much. Jay Helms from Madison Town, Ohio. Wow, Jay, welcome, buddy. First time you've been to the been here, or you've seen it before? We appreciate you being here, Jay. Thank you very much. My wife's from a little town called Montpelier, Ohio. It's over by Toledo and in that little area there. So it's kind of an out of place. First time I ever went there, I was able to go golfing with no shirt on, which made me sicker than a dog because the wind. I got windburn. Never heard of windburn before. Being a Florida boy, they all took their shirt off, so I took my shirt off, thinking I was going to be like them. We've been drinking beer all day, and I got back in about 2 days. I was like sicker than a dog because I got I get I got windburn. I've heard of sunburn before, but never heard of windburn. That was terrible. This place was hills. It was a hill crest is what it was called. And then there's gas golf carts and yeah, if you didn't know how to golf, it didn't matter 'cause all you do is kick the ball and it would roll down the hill about 200 yards anyways, because that's how hilly it was. I love golf. You tee off and you hit it out there in the middle of the thing, and it would just drop into the fairway. It was beautiful. Yeah, I thought I knew what I was doing there. All right. Jose Fernandez, welcome, welcome, buddy. We appreciate you being here, pal. As always. How's Puerto Rico? Hopefully doing well. Hopefully doing well. Christian from South Africa. Thank you very much, buddy. Hope you're doing well as well. Well, thank you very much. Well, guys, it's been an hour. I appreciate you being here this evening. Obviously, every time we do one of these, we get a lot of new people and everything. What's happening lately is we have, this night is one of those nights that people work or have stuff to do. So we don't get a lot of live people. Thank you, Jose. That's awesome. I'm glad. We don't get a lot of people. We get, because we're doing this live through my Facebook page, through my YouTube channel, through my Instagram, and through Rumble. And we do these lives, and then we get after washes and all that stuff. So, well, these are getting more than our videos do. We took a little hiatus on doing the videos because I've got that my hunters one I'm doing right now, or my journey to the woods. this weekend is the gun show. But the next weekend, we're gonna go into the woods with our cameras and do some scouting, deer scouting, and stuff like that. And we've got a couple different things that we're doing there. As far as the videos for the store, we're doing a lot of little small stuff. I got a few. We're getting a lot of people asking about the concealed carry. We've got there's some scary times right now with the administration that we have now, and this young lady that they just this next puppet they put in line, she's a gun chaser real bad, dude, real bad. She wants to get rid of all of them. She wants to register all of them. Now in Florida, where we don't have registration, but there are other states that do, and we need to be very careful with these who they're putting in and what they're doing. If you haven't thought about it, maybe start doing your homework on the politicians and what's going on in the world today. I can tell you this many years ago, what 3.5, almost 4 years, 3.5. My wallet was a lot richer when the other man was in, and now that he's out, it's a lot thinner. And my eggs were 79 cents back in the day, and now they're $3. So, and my gas was a lot cheaper. Now so um, but you gotta do something about it, honestly. I mean, we can't make it, anymore. Our world is changing. I know I'm getting inundated right now with new students that wanna learn more about this because 'cause they're afraid of what's happening, what's coming. Well, if you think about the world, think about yourself, think about your family, make sure you tell someone you love today, please. Life is short. My wife and I have a plan that we always do. Never go to bed, man. Make sure you tell each other you love each other. Make sure you talk to your family, your friends, and all that stuff, and start supporting each other. We need it. We must be safe. And remember, you are your first line defense. We'll see you next Tuesday, God willing. Make sure you uh, send love to your family members, and God bless. See you, folks.